Silence. You know, they thought they'd won, that they'd silenced me, tossed me aside. They thought silence meant surrender, a white flag waving in the wind. They thought by quieting me, ha 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 ha. They thought, he's just another ghost in the dark. But silence is the funniest thing, you see. It can be louder than a scream. And this silence, it's about to shake their very bones. They'd rid themselves of the chaos, the questions, the truth I brought with me. But they don't realize that silence is just the calm before the storm. It's in that silence, in the absence of words, that people start to really listen. Once a time, they tried to put me in a little box, tried to pretend I didn't exist. They wanted me to disappear, to fade into the shadows. They thought they could ignore me, drown out my laughter, shove me into the shadows. But what they don't know, what they never saw coming, is that my silence has a voice that cuts deeper than any scream. Shadows. They have a way of creeping up on you when you least expect it. At first it stings, you know? Being silenced, cast aside, like you're a nobody. You want to shout? To shake them? To make them see? But then you realize silence? It's a weapon. A twisted little tool that lets you watch and wait and build. You ever feel it? That cold, quiet anger. The kind that sits in your gut, simmering, waiting. The kind of anger that doesn't need to shout, that doesn't need to break things, because it knows its power. I used to think that strength meant loudness, that to be heard, you had to scream. But then, I learned the truth. Silence can be the loudest weapon of all. They wanted to break me, to bend me, to make me normal, whatever that means. I spent years listening to their lies, their empty promises. They tell me, just stay quiet. Just be like the rest of us, Joker. Fit in. Don't make waves. They said it with smiles on their faces, thinking I'd be fooled. But I saw right through them. While they chatter, while they make noise and stomp around, you sit in your quiet little corner, growing stronger, watching their every move. And they have no idea, do they? They think silence means surrender. But silence is just patience in disguise. There was a time, a long time ago, when I believed them. Thought that maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should just blend in, keep my head down, and let them have their way. So I did it. I silenced myself, swallowed my voice, buried my thoughts. I wore their mask, played their game. And you know what? It almost worked. Almost. But the thing about silence, it grows like a seed. It buries itself deep. And before you know it, it takes root. It becomes something else. Something darker. I remember the day it broke. The silence, I mean. It was like something inside of me just snapped. All those years of staying quiet, of letting them have their way, of pretending I was one of them. It all came crashing down. And in that moment, I knew. I could either let them silence me forever, or I could let my silence speak. That's the funny thing, really. They thought they'd won. Thought they'd tamed the beast. But they had no idea what they were creating. They took away my words, my voice, and left me with something far more powerful. They left me with silence. A silence that speaks louder than any words ever could. A silence that doesn't need to explain itself, doesn't need to justify its existence. A silence that says, "You can't touch me anymore." You see, they wanted to silence me because they feared what I had to say. They knew my voice was dangerous. They knew my words had power. But what they didn't realize, what they'll never understand, is that silence can be a weapon too. A weapon was far more deadly than any scream. In the end, they got what they wanted. I don't scream anymore. I don't shout. I don't fight. I don't have to. My silence is enough. My silence is the ghost that haunts them, the shadow they can't escape. Every time they look at me, they see their own failure. They see the truth. They tried so hard to bury. You see, when you silence someone, you think you've won, but all you've done is make them stronger. You've taken away their voice, but given their power, real power, the power of silence. And then the day comes when you finally decide it's time to break the silence. Not with a whisper, not with a word, but with the kind of presence that makes them wish they'd never ignored you to begin with. See? They tried to silence me, but now my silence speaks louder than anything they could ever say. And it's not my voice they fear. It's my silence. Because now, they don't know what I'm planning. They don't know what's coming. And when silence walks into a room, oh, the whole world stops to listen. So here's the lesson, the one they'll never forget. You can silence me. You can try to break me. But you'll never take away my silence. Because my silence, it speaks louder than you ever could. So tell me, have you ever felt silenced, pushed aside, forgotten? Good. Embrace it. Let that silence fuel you. Let it become your loudest weapon. Because when they realize what you've become, oh, they'll wish they had listened.